Welcome to the Financial Advisor Success Podcast, where you go behind the scenes with financial planner, speaker, and consultant Michael Kitces to hear stories of how leading financial advisors navigated the inevitable challenges that arise on the path to success, and get insight from leading industry consultants about how to break through to the next level in your advisory business. And now here's your host, Michael Kitces.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 438th episode of the Financial Advisor Success Podcast. My guest on today's podcast is Nikki Savage. Nikki is a senior director in the Tampa, Florida office of the RIA Sequoia Financial Group, where she manages approximately $150 million in assets under management for 100 client households. What's unique about Nikki, though, is how she has been able to boost client retention and satisfaction by asking key questions that help her reach a deeper level of understanding with prospects and clients and ultimately provide them with a higher level of service. In this episode, we talk in depth about how Nikki uses a series of questions to dig deep into a client's background to ensure they feel heard, understood, and cared for, how Nikki views the importance of having a good match between an advisor's strengths and personality and their client's needs, and why this suggests that not every advisor-client relationship is a good fit, and how Nikki adds a personal touch to client gifts in order to ensure they stand out and cement lasting relationships, improving client retention in the process. We also talk about how Nikki tends to avoid small talk when starting client meetings, preferring to instead follow up directly on a previously discussed event in their personal lives, demonstrating her ability to see them as unique individuals. Nikki's tactics for addressing mistaken assumptions prospects and clients sometimes bring to the table to calm their nerves during market volatility and keep them focused on their goals, and how Nikki prepares a customized meeting summary and follow-on task list and has the client acknowledge that it reflects their experience in the meeting as well before it is finalized, to further ensure clients feel heard and understood. And be certain to listen to the end, where Nikki shares how she creates meaningful in-person events that bring together clients and prospects who fit her ideal client persona to discuss their challenges in a comfortable environment, how Nikki learned how to filter out worthwhile feedback from the constant barrage of often unsolicited opinions on how she should operate her practice, and how Nikki's career path has led her to a firm that allows her to build and run her practice in a way that's aligned with her values so she can be her authentic self when meeting with prospects and clients. And so, with that introduction, I hope you enjoy this episode of the Financial Advisor Success Podcast with Nikki Savage. Welcome, Nikki Savage, to the Financial Advisor Success Podcast.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate you joining us today for a conversation I'm looking forward to and diving into what is it, so think about what does it really mean to have good client relationships? Nominally the financial advice business to me, it is a relationship business. I think that's part of why we've so robustly resisted the rise of technology, of computers and the internet and robo and now AI, because human beings we're wired as social animals for relationships with other human beings, and in a way that we just don't really bond with technology in the same way. And I think it's the relationship that helps clients like trust and accept and implement our recommendations, and it's relationships that help clients stay the course through volatile markets when we say, like, you're going to be okay, you don't need to sell everything here. But we all say that we build great relationships with the clients, and I find still that some of us seem to have a little higher retention, get a little more referrals, just seem to have a little bit of a deeper relationship with their clients than others. And just as someone I know has had great success in this regard, I'm excited to delve deeper with you today into, and as I think about the question, what really makes a great client relationship? Like, what's the difference between a good advisor-client relationship and a great advisor-client relationship?
That's interesting because I really think the answer could depend on, each advisor and what their clients appreciate about them the most. So, I mean, as I was reflecting myself and getting prepared for this conversation, I was curious to know, like, what do my clients value most about what I bring to the table? And you've got to be comfortable enough to ask them that at some point and see what they say, and then figure out the common themes and why are they saying those things. So figure out what it is that you naturally do really well and what they're telling you, and go from there. I would say that my clients, they would say that they feel heard, they feel understood, and they also know that they're going to be cared for.
I I'm struck by just how you framed that. Even at the beginning, like the answer depends on the advisor and what their clients appreciate about them. Um, 'Cause it's one of the things that's I know that's always stuck out to me in my early years. One of the advisors that I got to know in the office in the firm that I was at was just a really technical advisor. I probably bonded with him out of fellow nerdiness that he liked to talk about technical rules and tax laws and ERISA regulations and such. Back then, he was very involved on the 401k side, and his clients loved it. Like, they loved that he could nerd out on all of this stuff, and like they basically couldn't stump him with their weird situations. And what struck me was he had what now I would characterize as a lot of engineer type clients. And it was only a few years later that I interacted with a lot of other advisors, some of whom got really exasperated at certain engineer clients that like want to dissect through every single page of the projection that we give him, to really start to appreciate, oh, like maybe clients actually self-sort a little bit more than we give them credit for. That the ones who, in my sort of extreme example here, like the ones who really want to go deep on the numbers end up finding their way to an advisor that goes super deep on the numbers. And the ones whose eyes glaze over when you do that because that is not how they want to be connected to their advisor and the kind of relationship they have, they find advisors who fit for them. So I'm struck by your comment, like the answer depends on the advisor and what their clients appreciate about them. It wasn't something I appreciated until years later, that uh, we show up a lot of different ways and still manage to find the clients who like the way we show up sometimes.
Hmm. That's the hard part is, do you, because you see these moments of success and you think, oh, I can do that, I can replicate that, or this makes sense to me, and you are tempted to piecemeal it and put it together and make it your own, but that'll get you so far. I would say you've got to go back a step and figure out, you know, um, your own natural strengths and abilities. And there's, all those surveys and personality types and all that. And some of them are, fun and silly. And some of them, there's quite a bit you could learn about yourself. So I think, yeah, there's no one secret sauce or silver bullet. I think the answer is unique to each person, looking at yourself. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What are you passionate about? All of those, and then f- finding ways to find people that appreciate that, because not everyone's a good fit. And that's something I would go back and tell myself a long time ago, is you don't want every single client that's going to come knocking your way.
So share with us more, I guess, of that journey. Like, how do you think about your own natural strengths and abilities and finding them over your career?
That was It's a process. I don't think it ever truly stops, but I did struggle for a long time because, I'm a woman, and I'm very much used to being the only woman in the room full of men, and I'm also very competitive, and so I did the things that I was told and what I understood would would be the steps that I needed to take to be successful. Say this, do this way, research this, like all of the things that everyone else in the room was doing. And if I did it differently, I felt wrong and I felt like a failure. And this still happens, from time to time. I have everyone's going to have an opinion about you, especially as a woman. You are judged 20 different ways before you ever even open your mouth. Um, your hair, is it up or down? Is it styled? The color, the length, your makeup, are you wearing it? Are you not? Are you wearing too much? your clothes? Is it dress, suits, pants, heels? Are they too high? Are they open-toed? Like, you have all of these things that people are judging about you before they ever even know who you are and your background. So it's hard. You're walking on eggshells. And I thought that I needed to listen to that feedback because I do value criticism and I want to know how I can get better. But when you start listening to everyone else and you're not listening to your own self, um, you get lost, and that's what happened for a while. And then when I finally was able to kind of drown out some of that noise, and I have some great friends and colleagues now that I didn't have earlier in my career. I have a very supportive husband who also tells me that, sometimes that's just head trash, and he needs to tell me that. And friends do the same thing. So um, it's a process, leaning into and trusting what you know to be true while still listening and kind of giving some credence to that, what you're being told from other people, but don't let it drive you, I guess is what I would say.
So can you give me an example just of, I don't know, what they told you, before, and what Nikki does now instead?
I have been told before that I needed to tell more jokes in meetings to to break the ice, or that I needed to do a better job of building rapport. And I'm trying not to laugh because I think that's so funny, because rapport for some people is, to check the boxes. How was your weekend? How are you feeling about the weather? Oh my gosh, like doing like the shallow stuff that you can say at the beginning to, I guess, yeah, break the ice. I don't believe in that. I know that it feels fake for me when I hear someone else asking me those questions, when they ask it all the time. So acknowledging that I hear, those suggestions, because maybe that works for them, but then paying attention and knowing that the way that I actually do go very deep with clients, and then also leaning into and having some proof now of my retention being the highest out of you know everyone in my office, having highest client satisfaction survey scores. Now it, having some of those metrics to fall back on, right? That I get a lot less and less of those suggestions, but this still happens.
So, just curious in that vein, so your firm does client satisfaction scores, like does a
Hmm.
survey to clients of how satisfied are you with your advisor?
Yes.
So how does that work?
They are surveyed once a year. There's a few different numerical questions that they'll get scored from 1 to 10, and then a few open text box. And at the end of the year, those those are looked at, and that's really important. And I've worked other firms before where clients were surveyed much more frequently, and I love it. Good, bad. I would rather know how they really are feeling. Maybe they feel a little more comfortable saying something, in an email versus to my face. So yeah, I think it's a great tool.
Interesting. So clients get surveyed, and then the advisors in the firm actually get the feedback on how are you scoring? How are you scoring relative to average or others in the firm? So you can, otherwise, I guess we don't really know what a good score is unless we have some
Hmm.
benchmark to compare it to.
Right.
And so that became your guide about whether the approach is working. Was at the end of the day, like, my client satisfaction scores are through the roof, and that's what matters.
That was ultimately the quantitative, answer to some of those suggestions that I had heard, recently. But, I also knew and I felt that um, my clients really appreciated me because they told me as such. So at the end of the day, you just have, it was when I finally just kind of let go of all the pressure of this person's telling me this person's telling me this, and that's other person, there's a, a lot of voices out there also, not just where you work, but in the universe. And once I started drowning those out, processing it and leaning into what do I feel and what do I know that I'm good at, that's when I knew I was doing the right thing. The data, of course, came a little bit later in this particular example.
So can you share more of, I don't know how to ask this, just like what the approach is now? I mean, like how do you open client meetings and get going if it's not the we'll call it the traditional icebreakers? So how was the weekend? How's the weather? All that good stuff.
So often there's things going on in their lives that I know about even in between meetings that we're just picking right back up where we left off. How was your trip to Colorado to see your son, or have you looked at any more lake houses yet? Like things are going, and I'm just mindful of those. So it's not a check the box kind of starter. We're jumping in and talking about the fun stuff.
And are you one of those folks who's uh like just naturally good at retaining those details across all the zillion clients that we sometimes serve?
No, not usually. It's something that comes when there's a certain spark, a certain feeling of joy. Um, those are the things I'm able to. I can't remember anyone's birthday, or even like names are hard for me for a while. But if we talk about something and I see them light up, or it's just that moment, like I'm gonna remember that more than anything else from the meeting. And so that's also part of who I am as an advisor, is trying to create and spark that joy for my clients as well.
Interesting. Um so I guess I'm still just trying to visualize like how client meetings flow for you. What's different that your satisfaction scores or retention come in so much stronger than others?
If I think back to when I first started, you gotta you have to do the things and go through the reports and get the numbers, and it is more um, quantitative. And as you're going through those things and onboarding a new client, and um, you learn that. But along the way, you're learning and understanding the intangibles, the family dynamic and how those change. For example, I have a client and she's got two sons. One is becoming uh, more and more distant. She's found out some not so great things about him. Anyway, she was coming to me and saying, talking to our meeting, I just don't know what to do. Um, I'm really surprised at his behavior, and I've got, my other son, and she's kind of just telling me like this, what's going on in her life and her family. And like, and so we finally come to this realization that, there's a financial component to it. So I said, here, let's do this. Instead of reworking, we don't need to rework the whole plan or numbers or whatever. Let's talk about ways we can impact your other son now. And, I know you're not trying to do anything bad or wrong or whatever. You're just trying to do the right thing. And, would this make you, how would this make you feel if we did X, Y, and Z? And she loved it. And so now, it's about their families. It's about their real world life. What's going on? What do we need to do with the assets, if anything? And sometimes there's not even a financial answer to it. It's just, here's what's developed in my life since the last time I talked to you. Does that sound weird?
No, not at all. I think I'm still just trying to distinguish between that and, nominally there's lots of industry research, right? That is, you gave the example earlier, right? Like we should know our clients' birthdays and the names of their children and the names of their pets so that we can engage conversation around it. I think, I don't know, at least my feeling of how the industry frames that up, it still feels very I was saying like cookie cutter ish, right? It's the shallow version of small talk sometimes, and what you're describing, I think, is at I don't know, a deeper level of connection with the client. But I'm trying to figure out how to
How did I get there?
articulate the difference between the two.
I think it is a process. I'm not going to jump into the, you know, tell me, air your dirty laundry to me, on day
Yeah.
one. um, but what I have learned is that meeting someone at the very beginning, asking hard questions, sometimes re-educating them on things that they've heard, and that's, they have to we have to go back a few steps before we can go forward. And that's a lot of work I think that people don't want to do. They want to just onboard a client, get them invested, charge them their fee, and that's it. And I want to know upfront, what what would it take for you to fire me? What does a successful relationship look like? Why are we here? How did we get here? What was the catalyst for this meeting today?
Or wait, I'm struck by these. So slow down on those because there were some interesting pieces in there. So, uh, what would it? Oh, I think you framed it as like, what would it take for you to fire me? But like, so what does a
Yeah.
good relationship look like?
Um,
Or is that really the way you frame it to a new client? Like, what would it take for you to fire me? Because I want to make sure I never do that.
uh, I wouldn't rapid fire the questions, but I do. Those are all things that I want to know, and it's not necessarily the I want to know what not to do. It's I want to know if are they in the right mindset to have this type of relationship. Because if they immediately go into performance, now I know you're potentially not a good fit. This is not, or not a good fit for me, right? Somebody else can
Right.
be your portfolio manager. That's fine, but uh, we all know, right, that it's not just about performance. So either I'm going to try and coach you and see if I can get you to the point where I think we would be a good long term fit, or pretty quickly identify that that's not worth my time.
And so, how do you frame that question? I mean, is it in the fire me context, or in the I guess the other version, like what would make this a great relationship? How do you actually like to ask the question?
It would come last. The one of the first things I like to ask is, what's the catalyst for this meeting today?
Okay.
That we're not meeting by accident. There's something that's happened, or they're worried about happening, or maybe a good thing, something, and now they're shifting and looking at things a little bit differently. So, okay, what was the catalyst for us meeting today? Have you worked with a professional in the past? Tell me about that experience. And then I know how that relationship was framed, assuming there was one, and their vibe about it, their tone. Obviously it didn't work
Yeah.
out because we're meeting today, but I have a better idea of what their expectations are, and just kind of leaving it open-ended. Tell me about that experience. um, what are what are you hoping to get out of this conversation today? And then last, like, what ultimately, what would it take for you to step away and say, this, this is not a good fit. What would it take for you to fire me?
And so these are all questions you would be getting into at the very beginning of a discovery process.
Day
Or I
one.
guess even this, we're not even in client mode yet. Like, we're still in prospect mode
Correct.
at this point.
That's my favorite, is then I can day one, are we a good fit? Do we keep the conversation going? It's harder, I do have, when you get some clients that have maybe been transitioned to you from somewhere else, then I still ask those when it's us meeting, but it's a little bit of a different dynamic because uh, they already have some stuff maybe ingrained in them that is a little different than my style.
Right. Well, what was the catalyst for meeting today? Well, Bob told me he's retiring. So apparently you're my new advisor. Let's
Yeah.
get to know each other. So are there other questions that you like to uh, explore in that initial meeting? You'd said, you like to ask some hard questions. So some of these are pretty hard and pointed. Are there others that you use often in this context?
The only one that I like to use pretty frequently is if there's something that they say that just like catches my ear, and I feel like there's more to it. I said, just, I heard you say this. Tell me more about that. Yeah. Like, where is that statement coming from? And it's just like, I don't know if it's like a certain word that they use or the way that they say it, but every now and then I just catch something and it's like, you know what? I feel like there's more behind that.
So you said a part of the process early on for you is also re-educating. So can you explain more about what the context or what you mean by that?
Yes. The I know we all hear this, clients, they want to have their cake and eat it too, right? All the upside, no downside. And there at some point someone's going to tell me they just want someone that's going to take them, protect them during the downside. I said, okay, let's talk about that. What do you mean by that? If you're the professional, if you see things look like we're gonna go through some tough times, I expect that you're gonna prevent me from going down, with the market. And I said, okay, that's not true. Let's talk about that. Let's unpack it. And here's the re-education, right? Taking them back to the basics on their asset allocation and how that is the most impactful decision to their long-term success. Those are the guardrails, right? I'm going to, I said, and I prepare them. I said, you're going to get tired of me asking you this, but I always need to know your cash flow needs, your time horizon, and your goals. That's critical. When you look at your overall asset allocation and whatever we decide is going to go in stocks, yes, that's going to be actively managed and will be tactical, but we will not take you out of the market. We're not going to go to cash. We're not going to have a huge shift of your asset allocation when markets get volatile. And Michael, they've never, they've not heard that before. It's so frustrating because that's not the easy answer. But I re-educate them and I tell them over and over and over, we have to talk about this every meeting and just make sure. But I'm not going to lie to you because when markets do get choppy, you know that you're okay. We've talked about it. We've put a plan in place before. So let's talk about it right now when things are great. And then we're not panicking later.
So are there other domains of re-education? I know a lot of us have to deal with you'll own stocks when they're going up and then get me out when they're going down, right? So that one crops up a lot. Are there others that crop up for you around opportunities for re-education?
The other one that I would say is they've heard some rules of thumb about they should be more conservative and their age minus their time horizon. That's a formula for stocks versus bonds, and I tell them that there is some. I appreciate the thought process, but there's more to the story than that. And so I again go back to the basics, and the basics are boring, and nobody wants to hear that, but that's the reality. That's what our financial plans are built off of. They're not based on timing the market or immediately shifting into a super conservative portfolio when they retire, right? Let's talk about all the levers and the impacts to your plan.
So help me understand just how this prospect meeting flows between you've got some, the hard questions, as it were. We've got some re-educating. I think you said you tend to come back at the end towards the, uh, um, what would it take for you to step away and decide that this is not a good fit, right? The what would it take for you to fire me question. So how does all of this come together in practice for you? Is there a typical flow or kind of a cadence to how you manage through a prospect meeting?
It's usually a little jarring because from what I've seen, a lot of folks haven't been asked those types of questions that early on. So, there's a little bit of a, like of a shift. And when I do go into re-education mode, I know that it has to take multiple times to get there. But what I found to be successful is that, I'm taking notes, I'm framing the meeting, and I do have a couple of those questions that I like to ask. Um, at the end of the meeting, I'm also finding out what other planning components have they done in the past, and highlighting to myself like, oh, I'm not going deeper on those right now. I'm just finding out what's been done, what's been their experience, when how do they feel about it, and then I'm making notes to myself. Okay, this is critical item number 1, 2, and 3 that we've got to get done, and in what order. And then after, the that whole discovery meeting, I'm summarizing and recapping it in an email. It's kind of long, and but it captures in bullet points. Prospect, is this a good depiction of our conversation today? And 9 times out of 10, I get a response acknowledging like, oh, that's great. Thank you. Yes. And so that is like the foundational level layer of my clients feeling heard.
Because you can literally show it back to them with the post meeting recap email to reflect back. Are these the things that were important to you? When they say yes, that's like, yeah, so Nikki gets me.
Yeah, and that's just a teeny tiny step in the right direction. But doing that consistently is what starts to build to that, okay, she's listening, she hears me, and she's following up and doing the things that she says she's going to do.
Out of curiosity, in our like increasingly technology AI driven world, are you trying or a fan of the various note taking tools that help us to synthesize said meeting summaries and recaps?
Michael, I'm trying to be open-minded. I am we've just recently rolled out one within the firm, so I'm trying it. I don't like it, but it saves me time. I don't have a lot of spare time to just sit around typing notes all day, so I'm gonna keep using it. I'm very specific about how I want my notes sectioned and how it flows. And our note taker doesn't do that very well.
So it does help from the time savings end, if I heard you right. Just you're not thrilled with the output itself relative to the style that you like to I guess I keep notes and reflect them back to the client.
Right. It's just it's great especially if you have a long meeting, it's going to summarize everything in bullet points, but I like to have, everything in sections. Like asset allocation, did we talk about markets, personal stuff, changes to their cash flow? I just like to have it spaced out and sectioned so that it's so easy for me during the next meeting when I'm prepping, or when I'm prepping for the next meeting, I can go back and it's all right there, and it's easy to follow.
So what are the kind of notes, I don't know, categories or sections for you? I think I heard asset allocation and markets, cash spending
Hmm.
needs related stuff, the personal stuff. Are there others that you categorize as you're taking notes or recapping?
I will, especially like this time of year, taxes, right, or estate planning, and the whole. I've done this style of notes for so long. At my other firm, I did that because then I could, if I searched also through the whole CRM, it would pull up when we've talked about those topics, and that was really helpful. I love being able to do that.
Okay.
Or
And it
retirement, like when clients have that cooking, right, you want to know, has that date changed? Just things that are easy to search and look back on.
so the categories are like your search tags
Hmm.
to find when you do historical searches in the CRM.
Right.
Is that also how you like to structure the recap emails to clients?
No, I like to put it as like who has what homework. Like here's what my homework's going to be. Here's what you're responsible for, and then here's our next step, and when our next meeting is scheduled for. And it really helps to keep the ball rolling and progressing, and we're not constantly going back and forth and did you send me this, or who was like where was the the ball in the court.
So how does this shift for you when someone says, Nikki, I really like the questions and how this is going. I'd like to become a client. And now we're into, I guess, the next stage of discovery process.
So the way the current operation is, we build an investment proposal and you know um, make the case to manage those assets, and we're going to show you how, like, exactly how our investments or what we're proposing, why it's better than what you currently have. And it is very transparent. I mean, position by position, there's no secret to what the proposed investment strategy looks like. Then we say, like, we do this first, we get the paperwork to link on and manage these accounts, and then immediately after, we want to start the financial planning process. In a perfect world, I would prefer to do all of the planning up front, and then do the investment management shortly after. But it is, like pulling teeth sometimes to get clients to get you all the data that you need to do the financial plan. So it's a tug of war.
And then tell me more about the discovery meeting as you get further into the financial planning process. Are there more hard questions and re-educating at this stage?
I think what I eventually like what I try to just set the right expectations, that this is a heavy lift, and I, as a perfectionist, I also struggle with getting everything down to the exact right number, but you've got to throw that out the window. That's okay. It's not going to be perfect, but we just want to get at least, 80% of this now. And then from there, it'll just get better and better and more fine tuned. So just let them know. Number one, let them know why, that this is important and needs to be done. And most people get that, but there's a few people who are like, oh yeah, I've heard of financial planning before, and they don't quite grasp it. Luckily, like, having a visual to show them that, our software is dynamic, and here's how we can use it to answer some questions that might come up down the road. Once they see that, they're like, oh yeah, I definitely want to do that.
So,
So
so
telling them,
what visual do you use?
we so we have a version of Money Guide called Wealth Studios, and it's really like you have, your base case, and then you have these other alternative scenarios, and you just, if when you show them your screen and you say additional scenarios, spending more money, or retiring earlier, you just click on those, you toggle those scenarios on, and it updates the Monte Carlo in just a couple seconds. And then you can visually see the increase or decrease in success and the increase or decrease in, portfolio assets and net worth over time.
And you're doing this, like, this is part of the plan delivery, or you have a like hypothetical client so you can just show the planning process, like the output, what you're going to get?
I'm showing them a hypothetical. So back to like the discovery meeting and learning about their prior experience and working with a professional. Did they manage your assets? Have you done a financial plan? Like, what does financial planning mean to you? If I get the feeling that they don't know what that is or don't appreciate it, then that's when, visuals are very powerful. So I can just show them like, hey, this is how we would use this for you. And here's what it's going to take to get there. This is the process for financial planning. And again, just setting the right expectations up front and letting them know, it's a heavy lift. It's okay. We can always work backwards, to back into some of those unknown numbers, but let's just at least get started. So not so much re-educating, but setting things in the right order, explaining it, and just making sure they know why they're doing it and what it's going to take.
Are there other questions you like to use here just to delve deeper into their actual situation?
I think everyone asks goal. You ask your client your goals, and they tell you, you know, retire. I want to have X million. What if they give me a number, like I want to, I need $5 million. Like that's what my goal is to get there. You could very easily just stop and say, okay, cool, yeah, $5 million. That would be a nice sum to live off of. But it's like, why? Like, why five? Why not
Yeah.
six? Why not four?
I
Why five?
I always like those moments, like, it's a very precise number. Like, how did you arrive at 5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Why
just
not?
arbitrary. It's
Yep.
what, and they don't, maybe, and by asking that, they probably hadn't realized before that that was just an arbitrary number, and it doesn't hit them all at once either. It's over time, but sometimes it's just asking a little bit more. Like, okay, well, um, the plan. I feel like the plan delivery with the software that I use, being able to show different levers being pulled at the same time and to which degree, that's when people get really excited. Say, okay, well, which of these is more important to you? Is it spending more, or is it retiring sooner, or is it, the kids for college? And so all of a sudden, it's an explosion of questions, and what about this and that? And I mean, it's so cool to see, how excited they get about financial planning once they get to the plan delivery, and how I say, I want to put you in the driver's seat here. We've done the work. Now let's figure out, of all these things, right? What is most important to you?
And so that's the point where you're back in Wealth Studios with base case and alternative scenarios, and having the opportunity to start toggling amongst scenarios, say, well, let's see what happens if you you dial the spending back and retire a little earlier. Let's see what happens if you put more towards the kids' graduate school. Let's look and see.
Yeah. And that's when some of the I don't want to say secrets, but that's when some of the, cards that are being held close to the chest, that's when they start to come out. Like I just thought of one. They're actually the son and daughter-in-law of another client of mine, and they're young, just recently married. They don't have, and anyway, we go through the whole plan, and we're talking about things, and then she's like, "Well, we haven't talked about kids. We don't know." And I'm like, "So tell me more about that." And she's like, "Well, don't tell my mom, but we're gonna start trying soon." And then just they start unraveling, right, with all this information about they might are thinking this and then whatever, and it's just so rewarding to be, that privilege to that information. Because all of these things, like, it doesn't matter the performance, it matters like the things in their life, their plan, their families, right? So cool.
So can you now just share with us more context about like your practice itself? I mean, who are your clients? How many clients do you serve? Like paint a little bit more of the picture for us of the practice of Nikki Savage and the clients that she serves.
Sure. So, I mean, I right now I manage a little over 150 million in AUM, and it's about 100 households. Some of that is, you know, multi generation, and some, kids or grandkids that they don't have as much, but they're in that number. So about 100 households, families, I would say. So these are not, I mean, ultra high net worth. They're, maybe 2 to 4 million is the bulk, I would say, of AUM size. And so these are just people that probably didn't, um, they're not from a long line of wealth. They either worked maybe really hard to save, or some of them have stepped into it unexpectedly. So a lot of my clients are just, like I said, between 2 and 5, good, hardworking people. What I am finding now, again, going back to what I told you earlier about just being myself and leaning into what I'm naturally good at, is all of a sudden over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I have a lot of women who have stepped into this inheritance, or some other, they what I'm just going to call women in transition. All of a sudden they're managing money and assets, and they have not experienced that before themselves, whether because they didn't have the time or the interest. The reasons are a little bit different, but that is what I enjoy. That's what I'm passionate about. And it's so, what gets me really excited is them coming to me and telling me that they felt comfortable enough asking me questions that they never would have asked someone before, or they had never asked before. The woman's 65 years old, and um, never would have asked, what's a stock, right? I mean, there's this shame, and it frustrates me because a lot of women, they take care of a lot of things, right? Their parents, their kids, their careers, their household, all the things. This is another thing to juggle, and they don't have nobody, not just women. Nobody should feel embarrassed that they aren't as educated or don't know the complexities of capital markets, right? That's that's why I exist, and I provide a safe space to meet them where they're at, and they can feel that, and time and time and time and time again lately, these women, they walk away and they just say, I feel so much relief after meeting with you.
So is this becoming like a more intentional focus or specialization for you around women in transition?
It is. So once um, I was realizing how quickly this was becoming my niche, I said, I want to lean into this. And I, at one point, had asked someone else. I said, "Will you be my mentor?" Because I haven't, learned the hard way that you have to go seek those relationships out. Not You're not always going to be in a place where that announces itself. So I asked, like, hey, this is what I'm passionate about, and she encouraged me to speak to other people that were also passionate about these things, and got some ideas. And we're just like a small group of women who are supporting each other. And then now what I'm doing for myself, because I'm the only person doing this here where I live, is created events that are geared towards women. And so it's tough to kind of put it all into words and say what it is. My vision, right, is that this is not just an event or a series of events. It's a movement. It's a um, community where we can come together and share stories, ask questions, and it's a safe space, right? Nobody, and we, I know I don't have their exact experience, but I have a culmination of, 100 different stories and things that I've learned through their experience that I can then pass on to other women. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's been very successful so far. I'm very excited to continue it. But yeah, that's what I'm leaning into it.
So help me understand a little bit more just what these, I guess, just what these events are. I mean, where are they organized? How many people? What's the agenda or non-agenda agenda? Like, what's the event itself? What do you do?
This is the fun part, but also the challenging part, because it's it's different, you know. So this most recent event, we I, we arranged a floral bouquet, and I intentionally chose that because I had done it before at a networking event a while back. But it's a great way to have, not a task, but something that you're doing and you're creating, and it kind of relieves sort of the pressure of like a formal presentation of Q&A. It's like, let's all get together, you know, uh, create something beautiful, and have like a sort of a roundtable, an informal type of conversation. So um, I started the event by just saying, like, this is who we are and why we're here, and had some uh, hors d'oeuvres and drinks. I said, but this is what I want to do, and I shared my vision, and we created bouquets together. And along the way, we were able to just kind of open up the conversation to some questions, and some personal, and then also shared experiences.
And how many women were invited?
It was at 10 guests plus the two florists, and then a couple um, uh, women that helped. So 10 guests max.
And do do you charge for this? I mean, is this a paid event? Is this a free invite only gathering?
This is invite only. I'm covering the cost, and I'm passionate about it, but I also, this is a business, and I want to be able to grow that business and work with these women that I get along with so well. We're a great fit. So it was a mixture of existing clients, and then some other some potential prospects, and their friends.
Okay. I was going to ask, was this clients, prospects, or a mixture? So it sounds like some of each.
Hmm.
That that you invite or that clients invite? Like bring a friend that you think would be interested.
I asked. I was strategic about who I invited, and I did ask them to bring some friends, and they were very well received. There was a few there was a few scheduling conflicts, so they ended up not working out. But I wanted to make sure, my raging fans who, love and appreciate me, that they were the ones centered in this event. And they had the opportunity to at least extend the invitation to someone. And hey, I planted that seed and they didn't get to come, but you know what? That's a really cool thing and a unique experience that they were invited to. And when the next one occurs, I hope that, that will continue. My plan is that that will continue to grow. Oh, dang, I was really bummed I missed the last event. Let me know when the
Yeah.
next one happens.
And ultimately the goal is that some of this turns into business. Like there's a prospect or two who you get to meet or connect with, and that's the spark for a future relationship.
Hmm. Exactly.
So help us understand I guess the broader context of the business. You said earlier, like there's a firm that does uh surveys to the clients, your satisfaction scores and retention were higher than the others. So I'm presuming you're part of a larger firm environment. You're not like hung your own shingle setup.
It's Sequoia.
Okay. Which is where?
The home office is in Ohio,
And then where are you?
Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
So we have it's kind of like each office is kind of, we're all under the same team, but we're doing things a little bit differently. So it's like Florida is kind of always viewed as like, what we're doing is, we're the Florida team, and I'm competitive, so I want to make sure I'm, you know, uh, comparing myself against my peers in Florida.
And how big is the firm overall?
I think there's maybe between 20 and 25 billion AUM.
Okay. Okay. So very very large firm, lots of locations. I'm presuming then.
I would say I came from a larger firm before this, so that to me this isn't large, but yes, I
Okay.
mean ultimately I guess it is large.
Yeah, I guess by independent world terms, it's not large. By global financial services organizations,
Hmm.
20 billion is still not a huge number for some firms.
Right.
So, so then, what was your path to the firm?
I was I had moved to Tampa in 2020 while I was working for my prior firm, and then actually there was a pivotal moment where it turned out to be a great thing, but it led me to where I'm at now. So I was trying to find a better cultural fit than where I was before. Because again, being told and pressured and judged and saying that I should be a certain way, it was very, very challenging where I was at before. And so eventually there was some hardships and I had to pivot, and then that brought me to where I am now, where I can grow, right? It's still hard. There's still, I'm still a woman in a male dominated industry. So those judgments are still there. Those don't go away. But the ability to lean into and work with clients and explore these opportunities that have been going really well, that is an amazing thing. I did not have that before.
So, how did you pick Sequoia in particular?
I knew there was some really great opportunities and some things that I learned about that, as far as because 20 billion now is today. When I joined, it was 4, like much smaller.
Okay.
maybe even less than one. And so I recognized some opportunities for growth. Uh, I recognized the culture, um, the inclusivity, the appreciation for having a different perspective. Those were all things that I didn't have before.
And so when you switch firms, did you have to start a client base over from scratch? So where did like 100 clients come from in a couple of years? Were they able to give you some opportunities, or did you have to like go find that from scratch?
A mixture. There's a lot of new opportunities. I'm very thankful for that. Some of our pipelines have been very fruitful. Um, there's been a little bit of, clients that have been transitioned because, someone else has retired. And then, I have, in the short time that I've been here, I have a lot of referrals. Um, so it's been, breakneck speed, honestly, since I've been here.
So so you said firm's pipeline has been fruitful. I'm inferring then they have some model or mechanism where they do marketing and then you get an opportunity to serve clients that their marketing brought in, like that kind of
Hmm.
pipeline.
Hmm.
So where do those clients come from for you?
They are there are some existing relationships with some custodians. Yes, that's been a big part of the rise in our exposure, and that's where I've been able to lean into my own brand of, you know, Sequoia has great opportunities, and then I have my own niche that this is who the client type, the personality that I'm going to work best with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So so I guess I'm just trying to envision how that mixing and matching comes together between opportunities the firm's creating and you building your own niche and just where 100 clients comes from in a couple of years. It's a lot of clients. It's a lot
It
of
is.
activity.
Yeah, there is some opportunity that I share in, just being a part of the firm, but I also have to um, be successful, or be um, build relationships with those partners and have them reach out to me for those relationships.
So like building connections to the local branch financial consultants for the custodians so that
Exactly.
you're a source for them.
Exactly.
So so can you help us understand more just what in practice, I mean, what are these what are the things that you've been doing that make 100 clients appear in the last 3 or 4 years?
So here's what I know now that I wish I would have resonated with me a long time ago, is that those relationships, that the networking, not just for, the benefit of myself, to how am I gonna better my own career, or who am I gonna know, or not any of that, but it's like how is that those relationships gonna also better my clients? And so, it's tough work to go blindly introduce yourself to someone that you've never met before. It's a little like knocking on doors, and and saying like, hey, this is who I am, how can I help you? And the ability to be able to do that, yes, was that door was opened for me, but I had to step through it. I have to go and the extra I have to create those other opportunities to be in front of them while I'm in the office meeting with the client, you know, making sure I'm staying aware, like staying uh, in their in their eyesight, right? Making sure that they remember who I am, um, reminding them of what I'm doing for some of these clients, and how I can be doing things differently. So it's very challenging when the client, the actual client is part of the relationship, but you also have these other, um, there's this a whole other dynamic of networking partners, financial consultants, and I've got to stay in front of them, make sure they like me, and that's where the whole like I don't want to lean too far into what everyone else is telling me. That's where part of that comes from. It's this is who I am. This is what I do really well. And now, additional assets have come in. I'm getting referrals, right, that never otherwise would have been a part of any of this. So it's putting yourself out there, right, and taking those risks and just staying on their radar and being the best advocate you can for yourself and saying, look, here's what we did, and here's how I contributed to that relationship.
So are there tactics about how you actually try to stay on their radar?
Mm, sometimes, but again, it's I know that I'm not a great I'm not going to be best friends with everyone.
Right.
I'm a woman. And a lot of these partnerships are with men, and I can't. It would be weird if I asked a guy like to go to lunch or grab drinks with me after work. Like
Mm.
that's not going to be well received, and I understand why. And the other hard thing too is that the women that do exist in this space in those positions are not going to happy hour. They're grinding through lunch, the few of them that exist. And so I can't force other people to accommodate me or my personality. So it's finding the other people that I click with, that we get it. We vibe. We kind of operate in a similar way, and like how we put the clients first. And I don't, it's not like you. I think we talked a while back about the used car salesman of the industry. Like I don't ever want to give off that vibe. I don't like that vibe. So finding those that we click.
So I I'm struck by your point that there's very real challenges as a woman in a male dominated industry that, let's spend social time together over lunch or happy hour drinks after work unfortunately can have other not intended connotations. So I'm still curious, like, so what were you doing to try to stay engaged, stay on their radar screen? I mean, do you call them every month? Do you stop by periodically? Are you an emailer? Like, what did you do to try to stay on their radar screen?
When there's meaningful things that are going on in the world, and I find something that I think would resonate with them, it's not a mass blast email. I'm sort of sending it out to a few people that I think would appreciate what I'm trying to do for them. Other things are like, have you ever heard of like surprise and delight?
Yep.
Yep. Um, creating those unexpected little things um, in
What kind
celebration
of
of like,
surprise and delight things do you do?
well, last, March being Women's History Month, that was a great opportunity to, go drop off little gifts to the female advisors that I work with in some of the offices. Eh, Little stuff, like that. But again,
What gift do you give to celebrate Women's History Month?
some wine, or wine opener. Sometimes, if I know that they don't drink, I'll do like coffee instead. But I think the thing that I want to get to, though, is that it's not a shotgun approach. It's a over time, it's a process of getting to my methodology is that unique gifting and creative ways. And unique is not the same as personalized, right? So whether I'm doing these unique things for those professionals in my network, or I'm doing a unique thing for a client, that's what's a little different. Like, have you ever received a gift that you didn't ask for, like was never on like your list, or something you told somebody that you wanted at some point? But have you ever received a gift and it just was exactly like brought you, like, it's so awesome, and you're like, oh my gosh, this person, they get me, like this is an awesome gift. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yeah, these days with young kids, it's usually something that I can do or play with the kids.
Like a gift that you gave them?
No, that was given to me. That was given to me. So, someone knew I had young kids and sent a little drone that we could connect to the phone and send up in the air, and kids had a very fun weekend playing with the drone.
See that? Yeah. That's that feeling that you get when it's like it's a one of a kind. Like someone remembered something that was important to you, and they they got they thought of you enough to give you that unique gesture, right? Yes, you can get someone flowers on their birthday, or a retirement gift that's personalized, uh, decanter or whiskey glasses or whatever. Like those are things that are more, personalized, and those are nice, right? There's nothing wrong with those. I love those, but the more unique you can get, to me, that's what I like to do, and that's what I like. That's what I'm leaning into is um, the one of a kind things. Like I have a one example I just thought of where uh, clients retiring, right? Right, big milestone. It's a running joke of his Taco Bell obsession, and so um, the retirement, gift basket was a couple of fun things, some snacks, some like a little workbook on like what is my retirement going to look like, and then my favorite part of it was a sweatshirt I ordered from Etsy. And I don't know if you know anything about Taco Bell, but anyway, the sweatshirt says, "Let's get Baja blasted," and he yeah, floored, right? Loved it, and I mean, those little things, and having that impact of going a little bit further to create something that's one of a kind. That's nobody does that. I don't know if they don't care or they don't have the time, but I do care, right? And that's what they walk away feeling.
I just struggle to remember the things. Uh, I don't know. My brain has trouble keeping track of all the details of all the things that people are into and enjoy, for which I try to take good CRM notes with varying levels of success when it's actually time to like sit down and uh and come up with a thoughtful gift. And
Yeah.
how do you keep track of all the things to come up with these when the time comes?
It's I do I try yes, I want to keep track in my CRM and I want to keep notes, but honestly, like some of it is just it just sticks out to me and it's like a little thing in my brain that won't go away until I know I've done it. Like I had another client whose daughter is going to be a first-time grandmother and she is a huge Tampa Bay Lightning fan and I was like it was just like a formula went off in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's like, I have 4 or 5 months until she's a first time grandmother. So again, I ordered, something for the baby and the grandmother, that was Tampa Bay Lightning, a little card or whatever. And I hand wrapped it and then mailed it to her. It just clicks. Like when I see someone light up when they're telling me about something that they enjoy, it resonates. And I remember that. I don't remember their birthday. I don't care. I mean, that's what the CRM is for. You can automate all that stuff, send out birthday cards, whatever. But it's like the thing that brings them joy should be easy, I would think, to find. Once you find it, ask more and lean into it. But, everyone's so busy. It's go, go, go. You turn on the news, it's all chaotic. Like, what's the best thing going for you today? What are you most excited about this week? And I realize you could definitely ask that type of question and it sound cheesy, but it's not when you're genuinely curious about the answer, people will tell you. They'll light up. They'll be honest with you.
So do you feel you're at capacity in what you're doing with 100 client households that you're serving?
Yes. um, Capacity, time wise, for now, there's been a lot going on in the last few months. My, I still want to create this series of events that I'm doing for women in transition so that I can have more clients, right, that I really, really, really want to work with, and then have another person, a junior advisor now working for me on my team.
So that's a new addition that you already added of a junior advisor, or you want to add one in the future?
I want to add one in the future.
Okay. With the goal of shifting some clients to them so that you can focus on the women in transition that you want to serve. So is there a path to adding a junior advisor to the team? What does it take to make that happen?
I'm at a little bit of a pain point because it's I've got to hit certain goals of certain metrics of AUM and revenue, right, for that to make sense financially. And
The 150 million of AUM, still the numbers aren't there yet for where you want to be or need to be.
right.
Okay. So where do you set the target, or maybe where the firm set the target of where do you need to be where junior advisor makes sense?
Yeah, part of it is based on those numbers, and another part of it though is the uh, challenge of finding junior advisors because I'm not the only one in need, or about to be in need. So we it's been harder and harder to keep and retain talent. So I like to think, you know, that personalization, the empathy, right? The things that we bring to the table, humans that AI can't do, like that's what people need, right? They need to know
Yep.
that you care.
And so you're very much feeling the whole collective industry wide, we have a shortage of next generation talent.
Yes.
So as you look on this journey, what surprised you the most about the path of building your career as an advisor?
You know, I think it was how much the emotional component would be to we you hear that, yes, it's a relationship business, and I thought the hardest part would be, the technical knowledge. I did not get into this industry to be a financial advisor. I actually studied mathematics and wanted to be an actuary. So entered into the workforce, preparing to study for those exams, and um, got my got my foot in the door and working for an insurance company. And I thought that would be a great way to lean into it. And then I found myself, and in front of people, and then enjoying what unfolded from there. So yeah, definitely did not anticipate the the emotions, the how much those drive the decisions in the day to day, planning and conversations with folks.
Would imagine I'm not trying to totally stereotype the profession, but I would imagine coming from the actuary world, how emotional humans are in a financial planning context is of a very stark contrast from actuarial math and law of large numbers. That
Yes.
kind of by definition always works out that way because that's how law of large numbers works.
I love black and white. I love math. That's why it makes sense. You're right or you're wrong. And this relationship business, this industry, it's all the gray, right? It's all nothing is known or guaranteed, and that was a hard adjustment.
So what was the low point for you on this journey?
So my lowest point was a few years ago. I spoke up against the founder of the firm, very large firm, and he had made some inappropriate comments about women during a panel discussion, and I I knew that saying something was going to ruffle some feathers, but it was just one of those things where I couldn't stay silent, right? I'm very steadfast in my principles, and so I got up and I said what I needed to say in front of a lot of people, and I didn't know that what that ultimately that had just completely halted my career growth at the firm, but it it did push me to pivot to something else, right? So I mentioned a little bit before that I needed to find something that embraced those values of inclusivity. So um, that transition turned out to be a great turning point for me because it allowed me to build my book, my practice now in a way that better aligns with not only my convictions but also it's also the way that best serves my clients. I can be who I am and be who I can be me, and continuing to find the clients that appreciate the me for me and not expecting me to be something else, right? That's the beautiful spot, and I want to do more of that.
So what do you know now you wish you could go back and tell you from 10 years ago, living in that world, not knowing that the thing on the other side where you are is where you ended up?
I think what I would do is um I would cultivate that network that I talked about before, not just the professional network um for I need a CPA and attorneys and all that, so I have resources for my clients, but build my own network for my own career growth and reach out and find that mentor and find colleagues that, that I trust. That was monumental for my own personal and professional growth. And that's what I would go back and do. Start building that network from day one.
Any other advice you would give younger, like newer women coming into the profession today and trying to get started?
I would say, yes, I would. I would tell them, and I would want them to know that they should own their perspective. Your own experiences, your differences, your insights, those are incredibly valuable, and they will set you apart. Don't try to blend in. Be own that. Embrace it. Also, do what I said I would do on day one and seek out mentorship and build a community of people that you trust so that you can grow. Be intentional about your brand. Like I said, the way you present yourself, not only how you look on the outside, but your interactions, the content that you choose to share with clients, all of that matters. So that's going to shape how others perceive your expertise. So have consistent presence that reflects your values and your professional goals. So be intentional about your brand. Lean into resilience. Also, the industry is very challenging, very stressful, and your unique story, and then your just continued determination is going to help you to navigate future challenges. And then lastly would be, to advocate for inclusivity. Embrace and bring others into that space with you.
So as we come to the end here, this is a podcast about success, and just one of the themes that we've long found is that word success means very different things to different people. And so you're on this wonderful path in growing the client base, and 100 clients, $150 million. Like the practice is in a wonderful place now. How do you define success for yourself at this point?
For me, success is less about, the numbers, the size of the book, the number of households. What I'm learning more and more is it's about the quality of the relationships, both with my clients and with, my network of professionals. So I'm witnessing that client tell me who was so stressed after going through the financial planning or was so stressed about a tax situation or whatever, and the relief that I see come wash over their face. And then, or the thank you that they tell me, or they say later in an email, or that witnessing them leave with less stress, and they're filled with hope and optimism, and they feel empowered. Like that to me is success. I've done my job. I've now created a space where they can know that they can come back to me and I will help them through that decision-making process. That's success. That's the kind of legacy that I want to create.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us on the Financial Advisor Success Podcast.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to break through to the next level of success as a financial advisor? Check out the leading financial planning industry blog, Nerd's Eye View, at www.kitsis.com, where Michael covers the latest practice management trends and financial planning strategies. And by joining the members section, you can earn IMCA and CFP continuing education credits, along with exclusive member content, Get it all now at www.kitsis.com.